Welcome to Mission Majjhima. Ajahn. So tell us about Majjhima Nikaya 5, the Anaṅgaṇa Sutta.
So this sutta, the Anaṅgaṇa Sutta, translated as Unblemished, is really, as I see it, all about beauty, internal beauty, spiritual beauty, and external beauty, and what it means to have that beauty, especially that internal beauty, blemished. And Sāriputta, who's the one giving it, talks about these blemishes as the sphere of unwholesome wishes, which are basically the anger and irritation that arise from thwarted, petty wishes and desires. And as I mentioned, Sāriputta, foremost in wisdom, gives this to a group of monks, and Moggallāna is in the audience and becomes his interlocutor. Sāriputta begins by giving two similes, and then Moggallāna gives two follow-up similes describing Sāriputta's skill in teaching. The first simile that Sāriputta gives is comparing 4 different types of people, and he compares each of those 4 to a bronze bowl and how that bowl is either neglected or looked after. You can imagine a 4x4 grid, and in the first row you've got people who have an internal blemish, some of this sphere of unwholesome wishes and anger and irritation when they're pointed out. The second row is people who don't have blemishes. First column is people who don't know that they've got the blemish or don't have the blemish. And the second column is people who do know that they do have the blemish or don't have the blemish. The second simile that Sāriputta gives is comparing 2 different bronze dishes, both beautiful and both carried about a town. In the first instance, inside of the beautiful bronze dish being paraded about is the carcass of a snake, of a dog, of a person. And that's similar to someone who has external beauty. Specifically, it's in a monastic context where what's praiseworthy are these ascetic practices. So it's beautiful in that way on the externals, even if they're wearing rags, etc. But it also applies to physical beauty for a layperson or someone who's got this external beauty, but is, ugly internally. And the second instance is someone who's beautiful externally, whatever that is, lay or monastic, but has this great rice and delicious food inside. Moggallāna gives 2 similes. The first simile is like a cartwright, this person who is making a wheel and rounding out the edge of this wheel. And that's so too, Sāriputta is someone who's basically finishing this wheel and sanding out all of the fine, rather subtle defilements, these blemishes, refined blemishes. And the second simile is one of a young person, man or woman, who basically adorns themselves and puts on a garland. And so too, if we practice in this way of getting rid of this sphere of anger and irritation at thwarted desires, then we're adorning ourselves. So Ajahn, what do you find most interesting about this sutta?
I think some discourses have their power not in some hidden meaning that has to be drawn out, but just in their specificity of the things that they talk about us refining. And in the instance of the Anaṅgaṇa Sutta, the Buddha's, or Venerable Sāriputta's, just the list he gives us of the blemishes that one can have, they're so on the mark. Just to read out some of the specifics that I remember reading this the first time and just being like, wow, he really nailed it. Because in my, I've had moments. If I commit an offense, I hope the mendicants don't find out. If I commit an offense, I hope the mendicants accuse me in private, not in the middle of the Sangha. May I be accused by an equal, not as by a non-equal. I hope the teacher will teach the mendicants by repeatedly questioning me alone, not some other mendicant. Oh, I hope the mendicants will enter the village for the meal, putting me at the very front, not some other, and so on. So basically these 19 different unwholesome blemishes can be divided through those about committing offenses, desire to be treated as the foremost, desire for honor through teaching, desire for honor in general, and desire for fine material support. And speaking back to the simile you mentioned of the cartwright, I think it's really apt here, and as with so many similes in the Nikayas, you think you understand, and then you look deeper and there's more going on. And in this case, the onlooker who's watching the cartwright straighten the wheel says that just as they're straightening the rim and any warps out of the rim, such that eventually the core becomes sound. Even so, I see in this sutta, Venerable Sāriputta straightening out the rim, all the details of our actions in order to get to the core of humility. And you can't just tell someone to be humble, but what you can do is straighten out the rim of the wheel, all the detailed, specific actions, and hope that through that, the core becomes sound. So as this combination of detail and then summarization through a perfect image, I just find very elegant in this sutta. So, Ajahn, what new elements do we have in the Anaṅgaṇa Sutta?
So it's the first discourse in the Majjhima Nikaya that we've come to so far of someone other than the Buddha giving the discourse. It's Sāriputta, and there's about 10 to 20 discourses in the Majjhima that are like that, and you find somewhere between 5 and 10% of all suttas given by someone other than the Buddha. It's our first meeting with Moggallāna, foremost in psychic powers, and it's the first instance where we find what's elsewhere called the Upanaka Dhammas, 3 incontrovertible teachings of sense restraint and moderation in eating and devotion to wakefulness. So an interesting, very useful list. Just to go back to that first simile, another thing which is interesting about that 2x2 grid is that the second column, people who know whether they've got blemishes or not, they're superior in a certain way of speaking to someone who doesn't know because they can take action, whether that involves, if they do have blemishes, do what it takes to get rid of that, or if they don't have blemishes, prevent blemishes from coming up. So that's really interesting.
That's great.
Ajahn, what do you find is useful or usable in this discourse?
Pretty much, it's one of the most practical discourses so many are practical, but this is so specific. Some of those phrases just echo through my holy life. You come across some teachings that do that. There's another in the Kassapa Samyutta where Venerable Mahakassapa says, if as a mendicant, one should approach families for alms, basically, thinking, when among others, how could I possibly think, may they give much, not little? How could I possibly think, may they give fine things, not coarse things? How could I possibly think, may they give respectfully, not disrespectfully? And that's similarly to this sutta, another phrase that just echoes through my holy life over the years. And the thing you pointed out around one knowing that they have a blemish being praiseworthy, it's comforting because I've got blemishes, and the Buddha just saying knowing is worth something is very meaningful. And then finally, the acknowledgement that external ascetic practice and the beauty that kind of implies in the spiritual sense does not necessarily imply what's inside the bowl. And I love the intense imagery the Buddha uses of the corpse of the snake, the child, or the dog. That'll get your attention.
It's gross.
It's gross. So, Ajahn, what's the word of the week?
So the word of the week is yatha bhutam, which means, it's indeclinable, meaning as it is. You find it a bunch, I think over 1,500 times in the Nikayas, the whole canon. And yatha, as bhutang, as things are, as they've come to be. It's a phase of understanding that's on its way to liberation. So,
well, thank you, Ajahn.